issue that the Democratic Party has faced is that their base and their people who are most passionate, the people who their volunteers are drawn from, the people who their staffers are drawn from, the young educated professionals who make up the actual party elements of the Democratic Party, are far to the left of the median American. They are far more uniformly progressive. They have adopted a set of ideas that are unpopular among America, but extremely popular among their niche areas, and made some of these things litmus tests, so forth. So in the 2020 primary, you had an example of all of these candidates pandering to this group of people, except for one or two of them. And suddenly, like, the old, unfashionable, moderate-seeming candidate won. But a lot of people who voted for Biden as this moderate-seeming, whatever, old, unfashionable, not all of these things, wound up being somewhat disappointed by this because he ran to the center and then hired all of those staffers and hired all of those people and brought in all of that culture, and suddenly...
Do you even have a choice in some respects, though, right? Given
in many respects, no.
You were talking about earlier.
Because those are the people who are available, because those are the people who are around running things, those are the people who are passionate about things, because... as the saying goes, personnel is policy. you get
people,
the policies,
ideas, machines, in that order.
Yeah, you get the policies downstream of the machines of people who care about them. Yeah. And so the issue that people like me are facing is that in a lot of ways you can point to electoral politics. You can point to, for example, in education, electoral politics. I care a lot about advanced classes and looking for ways to raise the ceiling in education. This is extremely popular among the general public. In fact, David Shore, who does a lot of polling for the Democratic Party, his group, Blue Rose Research, looked at a lot of questions of this policy initiative from Democrats, how popular is this one, how unpopular is this one? The single least popular initiative in the Democratic Party was removing advanced classes. It was less popular than defund the police.
Right.
So why do we keep having fights over remove advanced classes versus not remove advanced classes? Because there's infrastructure around removing advanced classes, because there are people who care passionately about this, who think about this, and everyone who thinks like, I actually don't want advanced classes to be removed. I actually think it's good when people learn, so forth. They're just kind of counting on somebody else to do that work for them.
Sure.
They're counting on somebody else to figure that all out. And when someone does, so for example, in San Francisco, when people realized we have stopped teaching algebra to 8th graders and we are in fact banning them from learning it, so forth, suddenly they start a ballot initiative with it. It is by far the most popular ballot initiative that the people who worked on it ever worked on, talking to one of them, and it passes 80% to 20% because everyone cares about this as soon as they're made to care about it. So what do you need to do? You need to get serious about organizing for ideas that are worthwhile and effective, not blaming people who have already organized for other ideas, but just doing the work of meaningful things.
So I think I really love that, and I can see how your sort of whole modus operandi over the last few years has sort of been focused in this direction. But I guess one of the sort of you seem that's not a model though for kind of change on the margins. That essentially, we're talking about creating a campaign to fix this particular issue and this particular issue under the sort of assumption that the people running the infrastructure, shall we say, will continue. So that I haven't. Will continue to be kind of this sort of hyper niche, group of ideologues. How does that need to change? Or
of course it needs to change.
So how does that change?
I mean, how it changes, this is where it goes back to people don't actually give power up willingly. Right. And if someone has power, and if you're looking around and you're saying, wow, it sure sucks that a lot of bad people have power, yeah, they're pretty glad about it. They worked very hard to keep it that way.
Sure.
And you just need to go through the same difficult tasks of organization and structure and rallying around ideas and all of the nuts and bolts of political work that of the many, I love my coalition. I love the niche esoteric center, whatever, all of that. One thing that I don't love about them is that they are extremely anti-tribal and extremely, in a lot of ways, politics skeptical. There's a lot of people who just want to grill. There are a lot of people who want to work on their niche, non-controversial problems and hope other things take care of themselves. And at some point, you do need to be willing to just dive in and organize and say, we care about a lot of these issues. We care about them together. We recognize the power dynamics in play. We recognize the groups in play and the reasons other people are having power over these things, and we are willing to do what it takes to organize over that.
It's just like a revival of democracy in a sort of Tocquevillian sense, almost, you're advocating for.
Yeah, and I think that, like, people, so I used to be really cynical about the American democratic system. Like, oh, you know, we have these two parties who have a stranglehold over everything, all of that stuff. And I think that anyone who feels that way, like feels like, oh, these two parties have a stranglehold and nothing can be done, after A, Donald Trump completely wrenched the Republican Party to his will, and then B, Bernie Sanders, a socialist, which is not, in fact, a popular thing in America, almost wrenched the Democratic Party to his will and then substantially shifted their platform towards his and forced them to adapt in response to him. Like, at this point, the politically naive take is the cynical, democracy doesn't work, you can't actually, like, wrench people. No, if you can actually persuade people, if you can actually get people on your side, if you actually have a message, have specific ideas, have things that work, and show people that it can be electorally successful, then you can, in fact, change things both on a small scale, and then if you are, you know, so as an example of, like, hard mechanics, you get someone up on the debate stage who is, like, this centrist, wonky type of person, and suddenly their ideas are in the conversation. Probably they don't win in the Democratic Party
This
primary.
is like Pete Buttigieg, is that?
You know, I love Pete Buttigieg. He's more mainstream left than the sort of thing I'm thinking about. Like, say, you get one of the progress studies guys up there, say, who's on the debate stage talking about all this progress studies stuff. Suddenly, that's part of the conversation. And it doesn't necessarily win, but when they're looking for who's in our coalition, who are we trying to include, who are we trying to do these things, whose ideas are we trying to pull from, that comes in. And maybe 4 years later, that sort of ideas is really successful. There are a lot of people who are excited and passionate about it. Suddenly it's in a position to win. And that's the sort of thing that I think you need to do to gain power, is just take very seriously this process.